Time for another board game review, and this time we have the game Sword Art Online board game Sword of Fellows. This was sent to me by Japanime Games and is designed by Seiji Kanai. Welcome to the world of Sword Art Online. In this cooperative dice game, you'll take the role of Kirito, Asuna, or other SAO players and fight your way together through fierce battles for survival. The only thing you can trust is your and your partner's dice. Both of your rolls will determine the fate of Aincrad and you. Let me show you how to play. So in this game, you are all persons locked into the fictitious world called Aincrad. The world in Sword Art Online, you'll need to escape and flee this world by overcoming everything the game can throw at you. As characters in the game, each player has a couple of abilities and attack patterns called sword skills. The goal of the game is to use these sword skills and abilities to defeat the enemies in each scenario. However, defeating the enemies one-on-one in this game is not effective enough and is also too dangerous. Therefore, the players need to chain their attacks. When a player attacks an enemy, they select a partner to chain with and both roll their dice. If the combined dice result fits the character's attack patterns, the damage will be dealt to the enemy, and if all rolled dice can be used as attacks, you can let your partner take over the attack without the enemy having time to attack back. The players will then roll their dice again and use their abilities to manipulate the dice result and cooperate to advance within the cruel and unjust online game. If you manage to defeat the final fearsome foe, the players will have escaped out from Aincrad and cleared the game. If not, they've lost. So, at the start of the game, one of you has to be Kirito, which I think is very stupid, but whatever. And this will make more sense as we get into the gameplay, but here shows you levels, HPs for those levels, abilities, ability usages, and your sword skills. We'll go over the scenario cards in a second. Each game, there's a lower section, middle section, and upper section. These are randomly drawn from a deck. There's like 3 for each. So if we reveal this lower section, we've got, who is this? The lower section fight. Very imaginatively named. This is Kobold Sentinel, I guess. So if we look at this card here, we have different steps we have to fight through. This is the HP, and this is their counterattack. You can use a step token to keep track of where you are in the fight. Now, here I'm showing you a 2-player game, but basically on your turn, you can choose a partner to chain with. In this case, it'll always be the other player. So here we have Kirito and Asuna. So, if you look here, this tells you how many dice main player rolls and how many dice the support player rolls. So it's 3 dice each. You may re-roll your dice up to 2 times. And you can discuss which ones you roll. It can be ones you re-rolled or didn't re-roll before. But anyway, you can re-roll them up to 2 times. Right now, for Kirito, he's all about getting the same number. If you look here, to get more powerful ability, or to trigger more powerful abilities. Right now, he's just level 1, so he can do up to 4 of the same number. So, right now, you could decide, okay, maybe the Kirito player will re-roll. And I'm not going to go into all those right now. But anyway, that's how you can decide if you want to re-roll or not. All the characters have different abilities. Like Asuna here, it's flip up the 2 standard dice to their opposite sides. And the ability track tells you how many times they can use that ability, depending on their level. In the first level, you can only use it once per scenario. Now, once you've done your re-rolls, then you trigger your abilities. So if it was Kirito's turn, he could do a vertical arc 2 times, which adds up to 8 damage total. So you go to the card and you put 8 damage on it, and hey, that's exactly how much HP we need to defeat the first step Sentinel. However, this Kobold is still going to get a counterattack because we didn't do a perfect switch attack. What a switch is if you manage to use up all the dice perfectly using techniques, then the enemy doesn't get to counterattack. It's called a beautiful combo, and it can switch to the chaining partner, which avoids the counterattack. In this case, though, we didn't use these dice here, so the enemy does get to attack, even though it was defeated, for 3 damage. So Kirito would take 3 damage. He has 10 HP. But after the counterattack, we look and go, oh yeah, this guy has 8 damage equal to his HP. That means that step is completed, and we move on to step 2. Then it would be Asuna's turn. Asuna would then roll the dice. In her case, she's trying to get chains of numbers, like in ascending order, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you do the same thing. You roll the dice. You can re-roll up to 2 times. and you can use your abilities to try to manipulate the dice so that they match certain combos on your move list, like that. If you're playing with 3 or more players, then whoever had their turn gets exhausted, which means they cannot be chained for the next turn. In a 2-player game, you would just go back and forth, but if you had to choose between other players, Kirito would not be able to be selected for the next turn. Once you defeat all the steps of a scenario, then you gain items. You look at the top card of the item deck. Here's a Holy Soul Returner Crystal. It's a consumable. Can use when any player is reduced to 0 or less HP. Restore that player's HP to 1. So that's just a handy item you have for future fights. Then, after beating the first scenario, each character levels up, so their stats get better. When you clear the first scenario, Asuna's HP goes up to 12. She can now use her ability twice in a 2-player game, and she also unlocks Star Splash. Same thing for all the other characters, their stats just get better. When you complete the middle section, that's when you go up to level 80, you get better stats and stuff, and so on. Also, when you reach level 50, the middle number, you get a character dice that is special to your character. They look like this. They have the characters' faces on them, along with different little symbols. If you ever roll, you can choose to roll, exchange one of your regular die with a character die. If you roll your character's face, it's a wild number. It can be any number. Asuna has a special die where she has faces that you can choose this to be a 3 or a 4 because of the parentheses on there. After each scenario, you take off all the damage tokens off the characters. They're also all refreshed, and their skill usage tokens are put back to their max stat or whatever. And then you just go on to the next scenario. In this case, quest for the rare materials. I'm not gonna go through all these because it's, you know, kind of a surprise, but there are also different conditions that can occur. So this scenario, this guy is AoE, which means all characters get damaged with his counterattack. This one allows no abilities on that step, and this one he has defense 5, which means damage dealt to him is decreased by that number, which is annoying. So yeah, different cards will reveal different conditions and so on. Now, the game can end in 2 ways. If any of the characters die, the game is instantly over, and you just lose. If you manage to get all the way up to the final battle, and you defeat it, you win. You escape from the online game and have returned to the real world. Now, there are special rules for the final battle. I don't necessarily want to show you this card, because it's kind of a spoiler, I guess, but the final battle does have some special rules. In that battle, once step 2 starts, all players are refreshed. Only Kirito takes turns during this step, and he rolls 4 main die along with his character die for a total of 5 dice. You may add up the damage for all triggered sword skills, and the game ends the moment the enemy's HP is decreased to 0 or lower. You can't do any switches. Counterattacks hit the chaining partner, not Kirito. If he has no partner, Kirito takes the counterattack damage. And the game goes on even if the chaining partner dies. He may exchange a main die for a character die of a deceased player. And if he's the only one standing, he can start his turn with all of the support dice showing any result he wants. So those are the special rules for the final battle only. I guess Kirito just gets to be the big hero and everybody else is fodder, which is interesting. There are some other characters here, like we have Lisbeth. One result of the standard dice and increase or decrease all dice for that result with 1. Here's Agile. Change up to 2 standard dice to 5s. Klein is about changing standard dice to 2 standard dice to 2s. Also, all of them have different abilities and such. Silica, pick a character. That character restores 1 use of their ability up to their max. And like I said, they all have different patterns to their dice that trigger different abilities. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. You're just rolling your dice, trying to trigger abilities, get through the scenarios without dying, and that's the game. So I don't know shit about Sword Art Online. I have never seen it, and I don't really care. All things considered, though, this game's pretty good, even if it's got some really dumb things about it. But let's dive first into what I like. So, the sort of cooperative rolling of dice together to get certain combinations, it reminds me of sort of like a combo of a game called One Deck Dungeon and Dice Throne. Dice Throne has these like sort of patterns of dice you have to try to roll, one deck dungeon is sort of getting through rolling dice to get through, you know, scenarios. It feels like a nice combo of both. It's fun using your abilities and teamwork to discuss what's the best way to maximize your dice selection. Should I flip this dice so we can trigger this big attack? Should we go for the big attack, or should we go for smaller attacks because we want to do a perfect switch or beautiful combo? I think it's a really smart mechanic, that whole like switch mechanic, where if you use all the dice, you avoid the counter attack. It makes you really want to accomplish that instead of just rolling at random, because it's really helpful to, you know, dodge the attack. I would honestly recommend this with 2 players. Otherwise, there's this whole system of like, oh, this player's exhausted, yada yada. No, just switch between 2 players. Like, then you'll always have a turn. I think it's absurd to have 4 people sit there, but only 2 of you are rolling dice. So the other 2 just kind of have to sit there and kind of go, yeah, that might be fun to roll that. No, just play this 2-player. Now, the basic dice rolling of Yahtzee sort of battling is fun, but the game is constantly throwing these sort of frustrating and annoying limitations at you that seem to go against what the game is about. Like, I didn't show you some of them in the cards, but some of the scenarios will be like, oh yeah, you have abilities and items? Cool. This boss blocks all abilities, or all items, or all whatever. It's like, why are you even giving us these things if we can't even use them in certain fights? You know, a game like this, I think, should make you feel rewarded, right, for progressing, unlocking new stuff, instead of just punishing you with fake difficulty by just removing game mechanics constantly without warning. It's kind of irritating. The absolute worst part of this game is this whole convoluted bullshit ending fight where Kirito gets to play and everyone else is just there to be like human shields. They're there to take hits and die, but it doesn't matter because Kirito is the only one that matters. This just cheapens the entire experience for me. Like, up to this point, it's just really kind of, you know, fun, like, hey, let's, you know, work together and make sure neither of us dies and get through this thing. And then it's like, Kirito is the hero and nobody else matters. Wow, this is what the show is like. Fuck that. It's confusing also. Like, it just adds like 10 new rules for absolutely no good reason. You could have just had this been a regular fight. Instead, it's so irritating. And it made the end of the game just fizzle out. Like, oh, I guess you did it, Kirito. Okay, cool. Like, you're just kind of watching this guy roll the dice and go, oh yeah, you did it. Cool. Overall, I think this game's alright. You know, I can't really recommend it to people who aren't Sword Art Online fans. I think there are games out there that do this better, because the theming did nothing for me. I don't give a shit about the characters. I am not familiar with the source material at all. So I found it actually kind of bland. Like, it felt like just like a generic RPG to me. I also found the ending very irritating, but if you know somebody who likes sword art and board games, this is actually a very good game for them. I think it's like a fun game with a theme I don't care about. I would play it again, but there are other games that scratch that itch for me. So if you have a friend who likes sword art and you don't, but you want to play a game with them, I don't think you have a bad time playing this. But maybe take the Kirito card if you can, because that seems to be the one that matters. It also actually kind of sucks that you have to include Kirito, because it's like, what if you wanted to have, you know, a Kirito-less party? Overall, this game just made me really hate Kirito, and I've never even seen the show, but the game itself it's pretty good. Yeah. Just Kirito sucks.